Hi, Kenny here, and haven't put anything up in a little while, so I figured I'd do a little quick recording and also test out the setup I have for driving. I've just got my GoPro on the mini tripod down there, and I use a Zoom recorder. Got my lavalier here, and I just want to try this out. But I wanted to kind of talk about my first drop on a bike and whether riding a motorcycle is that dangerous. So maybe I'll start with the dropping of the bike. I dropped my bike about 100 kilometers in, I believe. And I'm still here, so it was very common. It's very common for someone starting off to drop their bike, whether it's a slow speed drop or just simply not getting a feel for the weight of the bike, rolling over uneven terrain and not having a proper footing, or getting on and off the bike and forgetting, the kickstands down or something like that. So a slow speed drop. And, there's a saying that, like, there's someone who's dropped their bike or someone who's going to drop their bike, right? So mine happened, and it was over. I want to put this out there because it was kind of the stupidest thing I did. Not I wouldn't say maybe not stupid, but what happened was basically, I was about 20, 30 minutes in on my ride. And at this point, I'm kind of rolling through my local neighborhoods. And I feel like anyone who's gotten a motorcycle, they've got their license, they've got their motorcycle at home, you've got your gear not broken in yet. The best thing you do is find these nooks and crannies in your neighborhood to get some butt time and be comfortable in some of the quieter streets. So I did that. However, by about 100 kilometers, I was getting a little bit more getting more curious, I guess, and I wandered out to a neighborhood I've never ridden, but I've been countless number of times. I've driven through there. Heck, I've even ridden it on my e-bike or regular bicycle, everything. So this is a neighborhood, it was like about 5 minutes out from 5-minute ride from the house. And I came upon a four-way stop, and next thing I knew, my bike was rolling backwards, and I fell off a slow speed motorcycle that was rolling backwards. And I remember at the time, still as I'm falling off the bike, still computing what is happening, and it totally caught me by surprise. And I want to put it out there because it's one thing they don't tell you or even mention in your M2 exit. Here, I'm in Ontario anyways, so it's an M2 exit. They don't tell you about hills. They don't mention hills. You when you do your course, you spend 2 days riding around an even, flat parking lot, and they don't mention hills. So caught me by surprise, and this is from someone who also I've driven standard cars for a number of years. I knew how to handle a car on a hill, and it just caught me by surprise. It wasn't anything I was doing that was dumb. It wasn't anything I was doing that was considered irresponsible. I just, for some reason, it wasn't part of my thought process, and it wasn't put in there when in the 2 days I did my riding course. And I'm not faulting the course itself, but there are going to be nuances where you're going to be out there experiencing, and this was one of them. And so uh, it was my first time falling off a motorcycle, and I was wearing my shoulder pads, my helmet, and I didn't hit my head, oddly enough, but I've also been a lifelong cyclist. I know what it's like to fall off, and but just not on a motorcycle. And it's a horrible, horrible feeling. Like, there's metal scraping. I think my bike went down on the left side. Luckily enough, I did have crash guards, and the damage was done to the crash guards. I scraped like my shifter peg, like a little peg, a shifter, and very minor stuff. Handlebars were fine, my grips were fine, mirrors, no problem. So the bike held up surprisingly well despite what happened. However, just the scraping, and I guess the engine may have sloshed the oil around, and a service light kicked on my Bullet 350, and I had to start it back up just to sort out the service light. Eventually it went away, but it was just detecting that something was off. So I was fine. I felt a little bit sore. I think the part that hurt the most was my shin, because I may have kicked one of the bars, foot pegs, on the way down. But luckily, the only thing that was hurt was my ego. I gotta say, I was full adrenaline when I picked up my motorcycle, and managed to get it back up right. And there was someone who was nice enough, who was a rider also, and came by and checked up on me and make sure I was okay. I sat there for a while trying to figure out how I was going to deal with this hill, and and a lot of this started coming back to me, like, okay, like, how do you start driving a standard car? How do you move up on a hill on a standard car? And, you know, the way to do it on a standard car was, for me, when I was driving, was to, there's a couple techniques, but you can hold the brake and just do the shifting really quick. What happened, I realized, as I was rolling up those hills, I was just not shifting enough. I had gotten a little complacent, and I was taking my time. I was kind of exploring, and I was releasing the clutch and the brakes after coming to a stop on an incline, and this was a 20-degree incline. Definitely something I would have noticed if I was looking out for it, and just rolled backwards as I was too slow to get on my first gear. So that being said, like, on a standard car, typically one of the easiest ways is to hold your e-brake and start shifting first, and as soon as you feel that clutch grab, drop your e-brake and start accelerating, and away you go. So it took me a while to try it and get a feel for where to grab my first gear and when to let go of the back brakes. And I never really considered holding the back brakes when I came to a stop, especially as something as simple as a four-way stop. Subsequently, every time I rode for the first 3-4 times after, I started looking for hills to practice. And there are other ways. I tend to hold my rear brake and accelerate up a hill. I find with the rear brake, the brake power isn't quite powerful enough and allows you to slip the wheel a little bit, at least, to get you that forward momentum up a hill. And they don't tell you about hills. So, I was left with a little bit of a bruised ego, but I started looking for hills to ride on after that. And I do feel like, as a part of the process of learning to ride a motorcycle, you really got to embrace that mentality that you know nothing, and you have to start everything from scratch. The minute you are feeling that your ego is a concern, be pragmatic. Focus on learning. Focus on more hills, more practice, and getting out there and getting it right. Because, yeah, I feel like your ego is like the hyperfixation of the learning process. Okay, so you got to really learn to ignore that. And the minute you're noticing it's kind of trying to take you over, get on the learning aspect. Get pragmatic and hit more hills. Figure out what are the ways you can get out of these situations. And to kind of finish off, I want to talk about how I kind of assess the risks of riding a motorcycle. So in Canada, and if you look up the statistics, the average number of fatalities on bicycles is around 70 to 80 per year. And this is the data from like 2013 to like I want to say late 2010s. 80 fatalities per year in Canada on bicycles. If you transfer that number to motorcyclists per year, in Canada, I think that number translates to just under 200. So something around 180, 190. Again, same time of frame for this survey taking place. And before I got into motorcycle, getting my motorcycle license again and finally committing to getting a motorcycle, I was really, I really wanted to get a hard figure on stats because it was just a way for me to deal with the comfort and the risks associated with riding a motorcycle. So is motorcycle riding dangerous? Yes. And these are the numbers that kind of push me towards saying, okay, that might be manageable, because I've been a lifelong cyclist, and you know, when you look at the number of cyclists versus motorcyclist fatalities, 80 versus 180, and this is rough figures. You can look up the details online, and it's very easy to find. But it's about double. And if you dive into a little bit more of the details on motorcycle fatalities, I think over 50% involve another vehicle. But with all fatalities, if you were to exclude things like the motorcyclist not wearing a helmet, not wearing proper safety equipment, the motorcyclists that are speeding, doing excessive speeds and riding beyond the situation where it warrants it, and riding while under the influence. They hammered on this real hard, and because it really matters. Okay, you really want to be, you want to have a clear head and proper mental. You want to be in the right mental space to ride and get on a bike. So if you eliminate substances and speeding and wearing the proper equipment, I believe those almost add up to 50% of motorcycle fatalities. So you take that number, and provided you are responsible and you try to avoid those things, that takes you almost equivalent to riding a bicycle. Those numbers. So while it is dangerous, I don't feel like motorcyclists riding a motorcycle is a death sentence or a donor sentence. Okay, and that said, where I live here in Guelph, Ontario, a lot of people do ride motorcycles as a hobby, and I do see a lot of motorcycles around. And depending on where you live, you're going to have certain challenges, right? If you live in a place where most of the places you're going to go to are on highways, the higher speeds are associated with higher fatalities on a motorcycle. But that's just a simple stat, very basic stat I want to put out there, because there's a roadkill there, because that's kind of the line that the conclusion I've reached when it came to whether or not it was wise. And it might still not be. It's inherently dangerous. I'm not going to there are risks involved. There's no risk. There is no risk in this. No chance of no risk. But that being said, yeah, I just want to kind of share that experience with my first fall on the motorcycle, and I want to reiterate that you don't know everything coming out of a motorcycle M2 exit. I'm taking a roadworthy course, and this is through the Riding Institute here in Guelph. I'm a big supporter of education, and I will be taking my course in June, and I believe it's like a small group, and I'm curious about just sorting out some early bad habits of riding, and it's one day of riding around, and looking forward to it, but just want to share that. Thanks, and hope this records. Take it easy.